This is a brief tutorial for the game Gnome Hollow as played on Board Game Arena. Gnome Hollow is a tile placement game where you are creating loops of these paths and get you bonuses and collect you mushrooms, which you can sell for points and do a few other things. But the main crux of the game is building paths out of these tiles. You can see here is the beginning starting board, and there are these little tiles here, and then there are these hexes that you will be able to place on that board in order to try to make loops of tiles. So on your turn, you will always place two tiles. That is a required action on your turn, and those two tiles can be from any of these. You may have tiles in your reserve. You can place those in addition, but you always have to place two from this reserve here. And this is the number that are left in the bag. Placement rules, you have to place where it's connected to something that already exists. You can't like touch corner to corner. There has to be at least one side connected to another tile or to the stump here. And then on each edge, if it's an edge with a path, it has to connect to another edge with a path. And if it's an edge with a blank, it has to connect to another blank. So let's look and see how that works in the BGA interface. So the opponents here have played this. Now I can choose one of these 8 tiles and then place it here. So for example, I could say, let me take this one, and then it shows me all of the places that I can play it. Let's say I want to start this ring over here. I can do that, and now you notice it is green because that's a legal placement. It's blank on here and that's connected there. But I don't want to do that. I want to try to make a ring here, so I'm going to rotate it. So you can rotate it. Notice when I rotate it this way, now it's illegal because this path is connected to the blank, and so those aren't connected. Similar to games like Carcassonne, you have to connect path to path, side to blank side to blank side. And you can also flip a tile. In this case, it doesn't really matter because it's the same, but on some of these, there's a mirror image on the back, and that will make something fit that wouldn't otherwise. And then let's say I want to do another one. So I'm going to just keep going with this here, and I can place it like that. And then I click confirm, and that will place those two tiles. Now, I don't know what the replay is going to do here, but I think it was something close to that. Oh, I did pink instead. That's right. So I placed these two. Notice that I also started creating this loop here. So this is almost a loop in itself. But I placed these two tiles, and now, as an optional event, I can use one of my gnomes to take a gnome action. These are the 4 gnome actions. The only one I can do right now is claim a path, but we'll talk about what the others do later. And I can always pass if I don't want to use either the 2 gnomes for some reason. But claiming a path basically means taking one of your gnomes and then choosing a path to be on that and to claim that path, so that when it completes, you will get credit for it. You will get the mushrooms for it, and you will get the ring bonus for completing that loop. So if I decided to claim a path, BGA is nice and it highlights all the different paths there. Notice this one I cannot claim because it's already taken by an opponent, and this one as well. So these are the ones that I can claim. So there's this one here, there's these little ones that kind of could make circles, but I want to claim this path here. So I am obviously going to put my gnome on that path. So now that at some point when it completes, I will be able to get points for that. So let's look at what it looks like to complete a path. All right, we're a little further along. Each of us have been working on a path here. And notice I placed one here, which wasn't connected to this path before, but eventually became connected as this started to grow. And I put my guy on this path here. Now, green player wants to close this path, right? But in order to do that, they are going to have to continue my path as well. And there's a bit of the game where if somebody places a tile that would continue another player's claimed path, then they have to approve that placement before it's allowed. So they're going to want to put something here to complete this loop. But in order to be for it to be a legal placement, you see my path comes into this square as well. They're going to have to ask me for approval. And this is what that looks like. So see, they put this here. It completes their loop, and it also extends my loop as well. And because it extends my loop, it asks me, do you accept the placement of that tile? And in this case, I just said yes. It was a learning game, but maybe I want to be a little bit more, mean in the game and just not accept that. And if I said no, they would have to reset and replace their tiles. They wouldn't lose their turn, they just would have to replace their tiles. And I would have say over that space as long as this guy is claimed, this gnome is on this path. It's not a super smart strategy for me because now I don't have a gnome available. I just have to hold this path and it's not making its own loop. So you have to kind of gauge that whether you want to do that or not. And so in this case, I do say yes, and then they are able to get their ring, and my path is continued on. And they resolve their ring, and we'll talk about what that looks like here in the next turn because I will be doing the same thing. There's a bunch of bonuses they get. We'll go over that here in just a minute. All right, so I have placed these two, which have created a ring. This was what I did, and it was a ring that I already had claimed. So I get to resolve this ring. And when you resolve a ring, you count the number of tiles that are included in that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the stump counts as 1. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sorry, there's a hex here, and then the stump counts as 1. So there's 7 tiles that are involved in this ring. That lets me resolve that ring for 7 tiles. Now, if I didn't have a gnome here and I completed the tile and there were no gnomes here, I would still get to resolve that ring and get the bonus that we'll talk about here, but I wouldn't get the mushrooms. In this case, I get the ring, the 7-tile ring, plus the mushrooms that are all along that path. Some pinks, purple, and a red. Not this red here, it's part of this other path, but just the ones along this path. So when I click this, it gives me all those mushrooms, and then it lets me move one of my pegs, starting with the left, into a bonus based on how large the ring is. So this is a 3-tile ring, a 4, a 5, a 6, and 7 or more. The pegs here are kind of how you progress through the game, and they are a main source of points because as you remove these pegs to put them down here, you will get that many points at the end of the game as far along as you are. So if I remove all of my pegs, I will get 25 points at the end of the game. If I remove all but one, 20. And as soon as somebody removes all of it, that is a trigger for the end of the game. Now, I get to choose one of these bonuses that are associated with that. You know, the three size a tile ring and the 4-tile ring don't get you any bonuses. And note that you only have one space for it. So if you create a 3-tile ring and you use that spot, and then at some point later in the game you create another 3-tile ring, you won't have any place to put your peg. You can still create it, and you may still get mushrooms from it, but you can only use it with a peg one time, and then the 4 twice, and so on and so forth. And then starting with the 5 size up to the 7 size, you get extra bonuses. And we'll talk about some of what those are. But one of the special bonuses here is that if I place my peg on one of these, it lets me place an additional peg next to it. Plus I get an extra bonus here. This one right here is a signpost, which we'll look at. And that's what I want to do because moving along this track is beneficial for points, and it gets you some bonuses that we'll talk about. So I choose this first one. it gets me a second one. And so I removed both of these. And notice there's this little flower symbol here. That means now I get to choose a flower up here. I get this flower wild tile, and I get to put the flower in my slot. Now these are slots for different flowers that you can collect. You have to have different flowers in each of these spots. You can't have any of the same. And as soon as somebody unlocks, quote unquote, unlocks that flower with one of these peg bonuses, while they get the wild tile, the other flowers are available to take for the other players. So there are always enough of these for every player to have one. And notice, so one of my opponents did the same thing. They got the wild and one of the flowers, and then the other two flowers came available up here. So I can later go get this one because I don't have it yet. I already have that one, so I wouldn't need that again, but I don't have this green one here, and I could use that. This, in the same way, as you fill this in, gets you points, just like the pegs, and it's also an end trigger. If somebody fills in their last flower, that will trigger the end of the game as well. This wild tile is special, and we'll go through a couple of situations on what it does, but basically it connects to any side. So it can connect to a path side or a blank side. And it will complete circles in the shortest way possible. So like if I placed this one in this spot right here, it would complete this circle because it would go into this ring and come out of this ring, and it would be a 3-tile circle. If I stuck this in this spot right here, it would also complete this one. It would come in and go out. It would also connect to this, which this placement kind of made it very difficult for this player here because there are not really any tiles that can go there, so they kind of messed up this player unless they were able to get a wild tile. That's kind of the only thing that can fit there. So there are some ways to kind of to impede your opponents, but this wild tile goes in your reserve, and is the only way to get it is through opening up one of those flower bonuses. So I got the 2 pegs, which gave me the wildflower, and I get a signpost. So a signpost are these up here. They change each game a little bit, but they basically give you that you put them out on a ring, and they give you some sort of bonus. So I decided to put this +2 pink, because I was already collecting pink. I put it out here. It gave me the bonus, but now this is a place that other people can visit if they just want to get 2 pink mushrooms. So now I have an option of what to do, and my options have been increased here. So now that this gnome has been completed on this path, I don't really need this gnome. So when I select it, now I have all 4 of these options to do. I can go claim a different path as long as it's not claimed by someone else. So there aren't really that many. Like if I did claim a path, these are the only ones that I could claim. This one, there's no reason to claim that because it's impossible to make that into a loop. We'll see later. So I'm not going to do that. But what I can do, I could get a flower. Remember, I don't have this flower here. So if I can place my gnome, I think it places it over here. And then I can pick a flower I don't have. So if I need this green one, I can do that action. I could visit a signpost. So now that there's a signpost up, I got the bonus for placing it. For your gnome action, you could just visit it. So I could get another 2 pink mushrooms. But this time I think I'm going to sell to the market. So selling to the market puts your gnome here on the stump. And then you come back here and you are able to sell based on sets of mushrooms. Notice I have 6 pink mushrooms, 1 purple, 1 red. And here's the counts, and here's how many points that you can get for those counts. So it shows me what I can do. Right now, I can't sell purple or red because I don't have at least 2. But I can sell the 6 pink ones for up to 9 points. And you can sell up to 2 different types of flowers. So if I had an extra red one, I could sell the 6 pink and the 2 red to get an extra point. Or if I had 2 purple, and 3 points for purple. Notice that these are in kind of increasing value. The purple are the most valuable. They usually occur on these flat straight tiles, so they're harder to make rings out of. Anyway, I'm going to sell for 9 points the pink flowers, all 6 of them. And notice when I did that, it put a little tile on the spot to sell for 6 flowers. Now nobody else can sell 6 pink flowers. They could sell 5 or 7. If they had 6, they could sell 5 still. But that spot is now taken. And any of these spots can continue to be taken. These ones will not be taken if they're used. So if I sell 2 of something, I get the points for it, and there's nothing, and people can continue to do that. But these other point values can only be taken once and only be sold once. So those are the actions, right? After I take my 2 tiles, I can do one of 4 things. I can claim a path, either one that's been completed and hasn't been claimed yet, or one that hasn't been completed yet, as long as nobody else has claimed it. I can get a flower that I don't have already. I can sell to the market, or I can visit a signpost that is out there already to get some mushrooms. That is the basics of the game. You continue to go until somebody uses up all their pegs, fills in their flowers, or all of the tiles are emptied out. Notice this is how many there are left. I'm going to show, so that's kind of how to play the game, but I want to show a couple of interesting circumstances that you should be aware of. All right, here's the first one. I placed a tile here, but there are no gnomes on it currently. Now it lets me resolve this ring of 3 tiles because there are no other gnomes on it. But when I do that, the mushroom will just sit there. I don't really care about that yellow mushroom, so I just let it sit there. I'm not going to claim that path, but if somebody else really wanted that mushroom later, they could come and claim that path and get that mushroom. What I really wanted was the ring marker, and so I got this extra ring here, and that's my 3. It's taken now, so I can't do any more 3s, but I'm trying to move my pegs along because that's more points at the end of the game. It unlocks these wildflowers, and that helps me out points-wise. Okay, here's another circumstance. So we were trying to figure out as we were playing this, it was our first game, how these wild tiles work. This player placed one here, but because he thought maybe he could complete this ring because this looks like a ring, but that's not exactly how it works. Unfortunately, there's no real way to connect back to this loop here, and so even though he's got this wild tile, this loop here will never be completed. Now this wild tile could be used for other loops, it can connect to others, but that's not really how that can work. Here is a place where it will work. So I place this wild here, and note how the ring goes and then comes out of the tile. And it does connect to those others as well, even though those are blanks. So we'll connect to anything. It kind of fits anywhere. And so I was able to claim this ring, and I'd already reserved it. So I got a 5-tile ring, which again let me place my new one here. And I placed it down here, which then just gave me an extra flower that I didn't have. We talked about the signposts as well. There's also this bonus here, which gets you an extra tile that you can put in your reserve. Again, you can have up to 2, and you can play them whenever. So you can play even up to 4 tiles in one turn if you have 2 reserved. And then the other bonus that we haven't talked about is the one with the mushrooms. There's 2 here and 3 here. Basically, if you choose that, you can duplicate any of those mushrooms along the path. So in this case, if it was happened to be a 6 path and I chose this and it gave me blue, red, pink, I could say I want an extra blue and an extra pink. I couldn't say I want 2 extra blue because that's duplicating it twice, but I could say I want 2 extra reds because I could duplicate this one and duplicate that one. There's that one here, and then the 3 as well over here. All right, one more situation. Okay, I thought, hey, if I complete this ring, I had a wild tile, so I stuck it in here, and notice now this ring is completable through this wild tile. Forget this stuff. It's just the shortest path through that wildflower. I thought, well, I'm completing the ring. I maybe get the bonus, even though they would get the mushrooms. But that's not the case. If somebody's reserved the ring, even if you're the one that completed it, they will get the mushrooms and the ring bonus, the peg. And so on the next turn, they were able to claim that ring at the end of their turn. This is a ring I got from this, and ended up claiming, reserving that. But I was not able to. I basically just gave them a free ring by placing mine in there. Again, we were kind of trying to figure out how those worked. Again, some of the rings cannot be finished, and so you have to kind of recognize that and how those wild tiles work. But you continue to make rings. Try not to get too much into each other's way, but maybe strategically do. The more rings that you build and the more pegs that you can put out so that you can trigger that end game. And again, the flowers, filling that in will get you lots of points. Selling to the market will get you points as well. And then as soon as the game end is triggered, either by somebody filling their flowers, using all their pegs, or the bag running out of tiles, that round ends, and then everybody gets one more gnome action. No tiles, but you can move your gnome, so you can like sell off anything that you have left in the market, or if there's a ring that's unclaimed and you really need that extra peg, maybe that will help. It's usually a market action though for that. And then after everybody's taken their gnome action, the game ends. Whoever has the most points wins. Tiebreakers are for I think is the leftover mushrooms that somebody has. That is the basics of Gnome Hollow. There are a few other nice features here. You notice this map is getting a little big, and maybe I don't need to see this. You can decrease that zoom out on this, at least on the desktop, in order to get more visibility for your map here. There are a couple of variants that I'm not going to go over, but are included in the BGA version. One where you're able to trade mushrooms when you go to the signposts, and one that is an advanced board that lets you, the pegs don't just require numbers all the time, but even shapes, like specific shapes of rings. But I will let you discover that on your own. Hope this was helpful.